Plants vs. Zombies, a game from all the way back in May of 2009. Man, now I just feel old. In the game, survival is entirely dependent on whether or not you can create a defense to defend against the oncoming horde of the undead. And that defense, as the name implies, is entirely composed of flora. And a key part of that defense is sunflowers. And sunshroom, but nobody cares about sunshroom. But what if we were to abstain from using that particular sort of seed packing? What if we were to try and beat Plants vs. Zombies without any sun-producing plants? The rules are pretty simple all in all. All I have to do is reach level 5-10 and defeat Dr. Zomboss, all without placing a single sunflower or sunshroom. Other than that, any strategy is perfectly acceptable. Lastly, I'm going to abstain from looking at any guides or strategies others came up with till after the challenge. Also, if you're wondering how my copy of the game is in high definition despite being on PC, known for its 4:3 ratio, I used a mod that uses some of the assets from the console edition of the game to make it widescreen. It also has the side effect of making some of the zombies look different, namely the dancing zombie. With that all said, let's get right into it. 1-1 is the first of a few freebie levels that not even give us the option of planting a sunflower. I'm also fairly sure the game quite literally won't let you lose. Level 1-2, on the other hand, is another story. Right off the bat, the game really wants you to place a sunflower on the lawn and learn how the plant works. Luckily, the game will eventually relent and finally let the level begin after around a minute. Plus, this actually had the perk of letting me get a lot more sunlight before the zombies even set foot on the grass. Otherwise, just make sure to get a pea shooter down on each lane and you'll win. On 1-3, the game isn't quite as generous, so I began to employ the current strategy of the playthrough, which worked pretty well up until the night section of the game, but we'll get to that later. Currently, the best way to accumulate more sun is to delay the zombies showing up. Now, you might be asking, don't the zombies come on the lawn as time passes? Well, they do, and they don't. Let me explain. When the level begins and the first zombie shows up, the game starts a timer. The game will then wait for the health of the zombies on the screen to deplete to around half before spawning in more. If the timer hits 0 before they've lost that amount of health, the game will then send more for that reason instead. Given this fact, it becomes greatly advantageous for us to delay damaging the zombies for as long as possible, since this will cause the game to continue to provide sun regardless of how long the zombies take to spawn. Considering this fact, my strategy for both this level and 1-4 is to let the zombies make their way to the lawnmowers till eventually a zombie comes down a lane that already lost its mower. Only then would I plant a pea shooter. I could usually get away with planting for at least the first 3 or so zombies. After that, it was a matter of planting a defense with what I have access to. Later on, we'll acquire Potato Mine, which will replace the lawnmowers in the strategy, but given I don't have it yet, this is simply the best option for levels 3 and 4. After completing those 2 levels, we're introduced to the first conveyor belt level. These are going to be pretty commonly the 5th level of any section, and function extremely differently from the normal levels. Instead of sunlight being what provides access to seed packets, it's determined entirely by what appears on the conveyor belt. And given that, these levels are of no consequence to the challenge. Moving on to 1-6, things are going to get a little more complicated and more annoying. Introducing pole vaulting zombies. While their main ability is jumping over a plant, the main threat they pose in this challenge is their increased speed and health. To deal with these zombies, I found it best to plant a walnut a few lanes up, since this will keep the other zombies at bay, such as coneheads, while also slowing down the pole vaulter. The zombie hordes were sometimes so thick that the pole vaulters might show up whilst the walnut is on recharge. In this instance, I'd place down a potato mine, since it was the next best option for now. This level set wasn't done with me, however. The next zombie type also required me to place a potato mine to handle them. On their own, they weren't too threatening, but these 2 threats culminate in 1-9. We see both of them at once. Fantastic. The amount of sun I had throughout this level was constantly on the edge of running out, but my strategy proved just good enough to maintain the plants needed to fend off the undead. The level following this one is another conveyor belt level, and so is completed normally. And with that, we can move on to the night section. And the first thing to know about the night section is that we're going to throw out all the strategies we developed during the day. That's right, none of them work. As you may know, the main difference between day and night is that sun no longer falls from the sky. And given I can't use sunflower, or sunshroom later for that matter, that leaves us with a mere 50 sun in the bank. Luckily, we have a plant that happens to make this still possible, the humble puff shroom. These plants aren't all that strong, but they make up for that fact with the fact they cost a mere 0 sun. Given that, while I might not be able to use more than a couple potato mines, I can certainly plant an army of puff shrooms. And that's all I can really do. Luckily, we're still early in the game, so the hordes aren't too big yet. Unfortunately, while the newspaper zombies I first see are easy enough, there are a lot more zombies here that a high number of puff shrooms are needed to handle. Namely the screen door zombie. Normally, one uses fume shrooms to handle them, but because they cost 75 sun, just above what I can afford, they can become by far the biggest threat in the night thanks to sheer numbers. And yet, the game refused to give me a break, as the very next zombie was the formidable football zombie. They combined the worst aspects of the screen door zombie and the pole vaulting zombie, having extremely high health and speed. Puff shrooms typically weren't enough to handle them, so now I had to reserve potato mines just for them, and you can imagine how they became troublesome once they both showed up together. As grays began taking up more space on the lawn, I began placing scaredy shrooms in the back. While that might seem like a waste, given I could only place 2 total, I could use it to make lanes with fewer puff shrooms less vulnerable, and given the sheer number of tougher zombies, this proved to work much better than 2 potato mines. And just like that, we make it past the night, the zombies moving on to our backyard pool. Things get both easier and more difficult here. On the one hand, we need an extra 25 sun to place most plants in the pool, and given puff shrooms are nocturnal, they happen to be asleep during the day, and so do not attack. Still, they can be used as a free way to slow down the zombies in the early game. Level 3-1 is an introduction to the pool, and so only features some basics and cone heads, so the win comes easy. 3-2 is much the same, now with a few extra zombies I mostly handled with potato mines. We also get an extra insta-kill plant, the squash. I would use this to handle any bucket heads in the water since you can't place potato mines in the water. Simple as that. 3-3 and 3-4 are slightly harder with the addition of placing walnuts to keep snorkel zombies at bay, but I honestly don't have much to say about these stages, so let me go quickly over my new strategy for delaying the zombies, since I could definitely use more sunlight. The main flaw of the potato mine strategy is the fact that it costs an extra 25 sun per zombie to handle them. While this is a profit usually, it would be better if I could get a new plan that costs less. Enter Puff Shroom. While it, and every other mushroom for that matter, fall asleep during the day, that doesn't mean they're completely useless. If I place them in front of a zombie repeatedly, they'll suddenly start traveling half as fast, having to stop to eat. Using this, I can plant a pea shooter later for the same result as the potato mine, which is better since I would have placed pea shooters eventually anyway. Unlocking the shop, I quickly made my way to purchase pool cleaners, which function identically to lawnmowers on land. Moving on, 3-5 is another conveyor level, so it's once again no issue. Man, the first half of this world's been really easy. Surely nothing's going to go wrong in the second. Oh god, Zamboni exists. In all honesty, these guys aren't too bad by themselves, but they can quickly add up. A problem given my limited means of dealing with them. If all my usual insta-kills are on cooldown, they could definitely wreak havoc. Luckily, they've never shown up often enough in level 6 or 7, giving me a break. Level 8 brings us the Dolphin Rider zombie, basically the pole vaulter, but in the water. Again, not particularly dangerous by themselves, but they're a thing that needs to be dealt with quickly. This brings me to level 9, using Dolphin Riders, Zambonis, and a high number of bucket heads. Needless to say, this level was a lot to micromanage. If I see a Dolphin Rider, plant a lily pad. If I see a Zamboni, plant a squash or potato mine. And if I see a bucket head, use a walnut or insta-kill. On paper, that all sounds simple. but it's the fact that if they all happen at once that makes this level challenging, especially if the usual solution's on cooldown. Still, the following level is another conveyor belt, so at least we have another break before the fog rolls in. Welcome to Section 4, the part where the game stops messing around. While we do have access to Sea Shroom, keeping the usual strategy for night levels alive, the zombies here are by far some of the worst to deal with. Not to mention, we can't even see half the lawn. With no sun to spare, it's going to stay that way too. So I think it's time we change tactics yet again. Kinda. For one, we'll need to keep Tingle Kelp handy for any bucketheads in the water. While Puff Shrooms can definitely take them when there's enough of them, Sea Shrooms charge a lot slower. This means that casualties in the water can't really be too high, otherwise there simply aren't going to be enough to take on the horde. As for the fog, it's really important we can figure out if dangerous zombies come. Given that, it's vital to keep an eye on any gaps in the fog, since this can give me an early warning if something awful is on the way. Jack-in-the-Box Zombie is a mix, to be honest. Supposing they never explode, they aren't of any consequence. However, I can't let them stay long enough, and they can definitely do some serious damage. Because of that, 4-1 and 2 will see me prioritizing killing them as fast as possible. Level 2 will also have me using potato mines to blow up any football zombies sprinting down the grass. Honestly, not too bad so far, but that was just the game warming up. Now it isn't pulling any punches. Balloon zombies, if you don't know, are extremely annoying, flying over every plant and avoiding any and all damage in the process. There are normally two ways to deal with them, cactus or blower. But if you've been paying attention, you'll realize we can't use either of these with only 50 sun. So, how do you handle balloon zombies with only 50 sun? Easy, you don't. There is quite literally no way to take them out of the sky. Lawnmowers and pool cleaners are capable of dealing with balloon zombies, but that isn't in any way a free pass. See, if one balloon zombie is beaten, and another were to come down the same lane later, there's literally no way to stop them. In level 3, this chance isn't too bad, since they don't appear too frequently. But level 4, oh my god. This isn't hard by any means. The strategy hasn't even changed. This part broke me. The chances that you will make your way all the way to the final wave without balloon zombies overlapping are so minuscule that this level took me over an hour to beat alone. The number of times I would get right to the end only for the final wave to send a balloon zombie I couldn't afford was far from pleasing. I had no idea how bad this part was going to be. And yet, seeing as I got to the final wave so frequently, I refused to give up. And eventually, the level would have mercy on me. Compared to everything else till now, this was hell. Basebreaker was a nice break before going right back into the fog with digger zombies, which were surprisingly easy to stop. All that really changed was forcing me to plant more puff shrooms behind them as they walked forward, while the ones farther up never really got touched at all. Even level 7 was merciful enough not to send me balloon zombies, so that was also easier. Sure, I had to keep track of bucket heads, but I'm used to that by now. Level 8 brought in pogo zombies, and they would all go down easy as long as I had enough shrooms, given they added more damage while also slowing them down slightly. And believe me, the fact that every other zombie in the world isn't a big threat is a blessing for the next level. 4-9, pogo zombies, bucket heads, and yes, balloon zombies. You might think this level would be so much worse, given the hordes are denser, but this one is actually a lot less RNG based than 4-4. Given that pogo zombies are here, the game will actually end up spending them instead of balloon zombies if one gets lucky. Of course, that isn't to say it didn't take me quite a few resets, but it was not nearly as mind-breaking as last time. And with that, we can finally move on to the final set of levels, breezing past level 10 as usual. Welcome to the roof, the final stretch of the Plants vs. Zombies campaign. To level with you, this part is all about maximizing the usefulness of resources. 5-1 doesn't give us any flower pot, so these first 5 columns are all we're really gonna get. Still, so long as it kept the back lanes alive, this was more than enough to work with. Puffshroom is no longer as helpful, given that half the roof is unusable, so we scrapped in favor of Potato Mine pretty early. Bungee zombies? Honestly not that bad, so I don't have a lot to worry about with them, at least for now. After quickly going to the shop again to purchase roof cleaners, the lawnmowers of the roof, I feel a lot safer moving to 5-2. Pole vaulters are still beaten the same way as usual, just now with our newly acquired flower pots as opposed to Puffshroom. Man, this guy really is useless up here. I only need 1 roof cleaner by the end, but given that was only level 2, that isn't really a good sign. On the bright side, I now have my preferred plant for handling this area, Kernel Pult. While he doesn't deal as much damage, the occasional Butter Throne can actually make it more effective than Cabbage Pult, provided we get lucky. And that slowing power is going to be invaluable against the newest zombie, the Ladder Zombie. Hogwarts Ladder doesn't do much. This guy's speed makes him extremely hard to kill. Given that, having them constantly being peppered with butter becomes necessary. Still, their first appearance doesn't end up too bad, given potato mines can be used if any get too close. Then comes level 4, sending not 1, not 2, but 3 fat zombie types at once. Luckily, Kernel Pults and a healthy amount of insta-kills put that plan down quickly. Breezing past level 5, yet another conveyor belt level, we see the Catapult Zombie. Given these guys camp in the back, hurling backs of balls to the back lane, I would switch tactics from Kernel Pults to 1 row of them and 1 row of Cabbage Pults. I figured the extra damage might make it more effective, given the lack of faster zombies. I also took advantage of the fact that I could place potato mines at their feet, destroying them for very little cost. Combining this with the previous strategy, I would do the same thing in level 7, along with placing umbrella leaves to counter the bungee zombies. Despite this, I ended up losing 2 roof cleaners before the final wave, making the last bit all the more tense. Luckily, all it took was a well-placed jalapeno to beat the final threats of the stage. To describe 5-8, I'm going to use 1 word. Gargantua. While there's only 1 during level 8, it's by far the biggest threat of the level, and it's an omen of the stress that the penultimate level is about to put me through. Level 5-9 has all the worst parts of each level with it. There are ladders, there are catapults, bungees, and even gargantuars. With so many threats, with different strategies to counter them, this is going to be the ultimate test of the challenge. First, I would place down Kernel Pults to take out the zombies, given that one never killed a zombie faster than the next zombie spawned. Slowly building up 2 columns, I would do everything in my power to keep them alive, given losing too many Kernel Pults would be a massive loss. Even so, there was a lot of luck involved, given losing too many would be a massive loss. And I lost way too many attempts to losing too many Kernel Pults and not having enough sun for later sections. By wave 2, the game tended to start sending out Jack-in-the-Box zombies. Dangerous, given my strategy used very little damage. Still, with enough luck and careful placement, I could overcome even this. Still, even with everything, I couldn't keep every lane from getting overrun once wave 3 appeared. Roof cleaners being essential in carrying out the last of the zombies that got through. It took me a while to put this together, and for it to even work, but eventually, the zombies would end up beaten. Well, there is still level 10, but honestly, there isn't much to say here, given it is, in fact, another conveyor belt level. So there you have it. The answer to the question is shockingly yes. Is it easy? In no way, shape, or form. This challenge took me roughly 9 hours, but it was worth it in the end. Still, the amount of attention needed, especially at the tail end of this run, is insane. Still, I am pleased to have managed it, and would encourage you to actually give it a go yourself. One of the best parts of Plants vs. Zombies is coming up with strategies, so for all you know, you might have a better method than what I came up with. But that's going to be all from me. So, thank you all so much for watching, and have a grand rest of your day. I'm out.